Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that's so much more than just a headline. It's really a window into a deep and, frankly, troubling crisis that's unfolding in the state of Assam.
This really captures the devastating arc of so many stories, but today we're focusing on one in particular. It's that mix of promise and ultimately tragedy that's at the very heart of what we're talking about. To really understand the staggering scale of human trafficking, sometimes you have to zoom in on just one person. We have to start with a single story. And this is the story of Pooja Das, a 23-year-old woman whose search for a better life, well, it ended in the worst way imaginable.
All right, let's get into it. This is Pooja Das's final journey. It's a timeline that shows exactly how a young woman's dreams turned into an absolute nightmare.
So, it all started on August 23rd. Pooja was lured away from her home by a man named Mahesh Paswan. He promised her a job in West Bengal. And this is such a common and just tragically effective tactic that traffickers use all the time. Just a few days later, her body was found. It was dismembered. The hope she had when she left home it was replaced by this unimaginable violence. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit from Pooja's personal tragedy, because as completely heartbreaking as her story is, it is not an isolated incident, not by a long shot. It really reflects a much, much larger systemic problem that's just plaguing the entire state of Assam. Just look at this number, 203. That's how many official cases of human trafficking were registered in Assam in just 1 year, 2021. That number is staggering, and it puts Assam right up there among the top states in all of India for this horrific crime. And to put that into perspective for you, that means Assam ranked third in the entire country in 2021. We're talking about a crisis on par with much, much larger states like Maharashtra and Telangana. So yeah, this isn't some minor issue, it's a full-blown catastrophe. Now, the number of cases did drop a bit the next year, but the underlying risks, they are still dangerously high. But here's the thing. The number of cases isn't even the most shocking part of this whole story. What's truly unbelievable is the number of convictions. 0. That's right, 0. Despite 203 registered cases, despite charges being filed, there was not a single conviction for human trafficking in Assam that year. It's a complete and utterly devastating failure of the justice system. So this just begs the question, right? Why? Why is this happening? What are the root causes that are making Assam so incredibly vulnerable to these traffickers? Well, it's really a perfect storm of devastating factors. You've got widespread poverty and unemployment. Then you have these recurring floods that just wipe out people's livelihoods. And on top of that, there are porous borders that traffickers can just easily exploit. All of this together, it creates this deep, deep sense of desperation, especially in already vulnerable places like the tea garden communities. And this is how they get them. See, traffickers often don't use force. Not at first, anyway. What they do is exploit that desperation we were just talking about. They show up disguised as hope itself, offering these false promises of jobs, a good education, or even marriage. It's the exact same tactic that, as we saw, proved fatal in Pooja's case. Okay, so on paper, you'd think things are being handled. The state has a plan, they've written and notified policies. But as we're about to see, there is this massive, gaping chasm between what's written down and what's actually happening on the ground. And right here, this is the fundamental disconnect. On one side, you've got the promise, right? A comprehensive policy filled with all the right words: prevention, protection, rehabilitation. But then you look at the other side, the reality. And what do you see? 0 convictions, trafficking networks that are still active, and people like Pooja, just left dangerously exposed. This is why Pooja's story can't just be another statistic. It can't. It absolutely has to be a catalyst for change. Her life and her tragic death, they have to be what pushes us from silence into action. And this is the question that really comes out of that huge gap between the policy and reality. It's a question we all have to ask, of lawmakers, of law enforcement, of society. How many more Poojas have to die before the system actually starts protecting its own people? I mean, think about the message that sends. When there are no convictions, it sends this chilling signal that these horrific crimes can be committed with, well, impunity. It tells traffickers, hey, the risk is low.
And it tells these grieving families that their loss just doesn't matter enough to the system. So, what do we do? Where's the path forward? Well, honoring Pooja's memory means we need a real multi-pronged strategy. First, it has to start with enforcement. Swift, certain justice. No more excuses. But it can't stop there. It also has to include meaningful support for the survivors. And maybe most importantly, we need stronger prevention and awareness right at the community level to stop this from ever happening in the first place.
Look, Pooja Das's journey was ended, silenced by just unthinkable cruelty. But her story, and the countless stories just like hers, they can't be met with more silence. Her memory has to become a symbol. It has to be a driving force in the fight for safety, for dignity, and for justice for everyone.